This is video 2 in the Saving Data series with Datally. Just as a reminder, part 1 was about introducing the Datally Android app, which was introduced only, 12 hours ago or so. What I'd like to do is make sense of how I use data and what I use, and I don't mind sharing with this. So for an example, I'm on Android, and if you look up on the top left, it says My EE. EE is a global company, especially in the UK, some great 4G service. Incredibly cheap is how I use it, and I'll tell you how and why. So for an example, my EE account, EE is the company, and then 2, 3, so I'm just counting. I do a weekly pay-as-you-go, no big deal to that, and I'll show exactly my breakdown in a moment. What you see on screen is an update where I've got 300 megabytes to use in a 7-day period. You can see that it starts on, I'm telling you, it starts on Wednesday. We're a Thursday. I've only used 2 megabytes. Then what I get is, and again, I see myself as extremely privileged in a luxury UK with a hugely competitive 4G network, and I started off paying £1 UK a week, which gave me an offer to spend £1.50, and that gives me, with these free boost things, what happens is that the more loyal I am to them, then I get an extra 50 megabytes every time I top up. So that's where I get the 300 from. My point of it is it's very, very easy to go in and start using data incredibly swiftly. So next part of this discussion, if you like, is to go into my settings. And so let's say I start a 7-day period and I've got 300 megabytes to use. How is the breakdown between Wi-Fi and data? And I can tell you exactly. If I go down to data use, then at the moment, since the 9th of November, I've only used 137 megabytes. The point of it is to say that if I go down and say my data use, and again, I'm very conscious that I do not mind sharing any of this information. If you say that there is 137 megabytes used in that period, then you can see, of course, the breakdown. And this is the torment, if you like, on a day-to-day basis, to see that I don't want to blow the whole 300 megabytes in one, video call or whatever. But if you think 137 megabytes, if you go down to Wi-Fi in a period, 26 gigabytes, which is, doing the math, is incredibly big. I mean, 26, let me just do the math here, 38 divided by 100 and, 37? Probably wrong, but it's obviously 20 odd times bigger. The point of it is that I can dial in and dial out, and you notice that this thing about the data saver, I always keep off. Now, I used to turn this on all the time, and I must admit I've just kind of forgotten about it, and Android 7 has been extremely good and not really ripped through the data, which is very, very good. So if you look at that 137, and this is the weird part, and this is me sharing about how I use data. If I go down, and this is what I was doing before Datally turned up, I was using a Google Keep little document, and every so often you can see that I would come along, and you can see the top part, 30th of November, 137 megabytes, which is what my Android phone knows, and EE is 298 megabytes. So the mathematical theory is that if I use, say, 10 megabytes, then that will be 147, and of course EE will subtract to be 288. Nightmare, isn't it, really, to actually get control of your data. And you can see that this is purely that I was keeping in a very haphazard way of what I was doing. And I was trying to get this idea of, like, you can see whenever it was, Wednesday evening, this is how much was left, and I'm trying to get this idea because obviously I don't use too much because I'm very careful on the Wi-Fi, or very careful with communication.